Hello, Melissa Franks. Welcome to All In with Allie. How you doing?
I am good. I'm so happy to be here with you today.
I am so excited to have you. So we were just talking. So Melissa, she and I worked together until just a couple of weeks ago, and we were like meeting every single week, talking. Not every day, but most days I feel like, and I felt like I was so integrated in your life and like real life and your business too. So it's been a couple weeks. So I'm selfishly excited to catch up with you, but then also to pick your brain as well, because there's just not only so many interesting things going on in your life that you have so much wisdom to share with us, but also so much genius related to scaling and optimizing businesses as well, that obviously everybody's going to be pumped to hear about. So first, let's get started. Let's catch everybody up to speed on who you are, what your background is, how you got here today.
That is a fantastic question. And
a loaded one, I know.
100%. And you know what's funny is that in the corporate world, you get coached very early to have an elevator pitch, about who you are. So like what they love to tell you is that if you got into the elevator with the CEO and you only had the amount of time that it took to get to the bottom floor, what would you say? And you get a lot of coaching around that. And what I have found is that it just doesn't do it justice as far as I'm concerned, because my story is really interesting. But what I will say first and foremost is I'm a mom of three boys. They are 14, 12, and 10. And to everybody listening,
let's just pause right there. Let's just pause right there and bow down and go on.
Oh man. I will say I did it on purpose. I hated being pregnant. So the goal was to get it done as fast as possible. So I wanted a big full house of rambunctious boys. That was what I picked. The universe gives you what you can handle. And they knew I couldn't handle another one of me. But I professionally, I was a hustler. Like at 15 years old, as soon as I could get a worker's permit, I was like down in the factory outlet center that was literally getting built, like in construction mode, banging on doors saying, who will hire me? Who will give me a job? I always had a job. Before that, I was babysitting like a maniac. Like I always had some way of generating revenue. And I think it's because I grew up in a house where money was really scarce. My mom decided to be a wife, and then she ended up getting divorced and then had to figure out, with two small kids, how to make an income without a college degree and without really any transferable skills. And I knew I never wanted to be that. And so when I was still in college, I still had like a solid year of college left, I started my corporate career. I was an administrative assistant, like was willing to do like whatever it took to learn and get my feet wet. And that served me really well, because it taught me the power of saying yes to any opportunity that's given to you. The worst thing that can happen is you can fail and you'll dust yourself off and try again. And so I spent over 25 years inside of large corporations, multinational, large corporations. I was an English major. I thought I was going to teach English in high schools.
Wow. Knowing you now, that's mind blowing.
Yeah, that was my big plan, right?
Wow. I did not know that.
And then I realized when I was a senior in college that I looked the same age as all of the seniors in high school. And like, it just was not going to work. Like, it was not going to.
They're like, I'm not learning English from you.
This is not going to happen. But I entered the insurance industry 10 years into my corporate career. I knew nothing. My mom was still handling my car insurance policy. Like I literally knew nothing about insurance. I didn't know what it meant. I just knew you had to have it or you couldn't drive. And I built a career over 15 years that got me into the C-suite, not only of an insurance company, but inside of a technology company to boot. So this girl that loved to read Jane Austen novels and like dissect complicated prose, all of a sudden is leading a very large, at the time of my exit, it was $350 million company, and in the IT sector and financial services. And I pivoted and left and went to a startup for a year. It was a really, really great experience. I learned a lot. I also learned what not to say yes to in the future. So that was a really big lesson. And, now I'm in a really big personal transition. And so I'm leveraging my expertise to be able to, keep a roof over our head and do all the things that we need to do while really focusing on my family and what they need from me right now.
Beautiful. So for anybody who is like me just a couple months ago and who does not have a corporate background, what does C-suite mean?
So it's the top of the food chain, for lack of a better way to say it.
So the execs of the company.
100%. So if you think of a company like a pyramid, at the very, very top, at the point of the pyramid is where you have your very top executives. And they are known as officers of the company, which means that you have legal and fiduciary financial responsibility. So whenever I made a decision, I was personally liable for the outcome or
no pressure, none at all.
of what was happening. And so what I carried with me not only was, am I doing the right thing by the employees of the company? Am I doing the right thing by our shareholders? So the people that actually own the company. But am I also making sure that I'm doing the right thing morally and ethically? And I'm not going to land myself in jail, right? So the C-suite is the CEO, it's the chief financial officer, and the chief operating officer, which is what I'm known as. And then you've got a bunch of other casts of characters depending on the company that you're in. But those three roles that I just mentioned, they're always there. And those are the three at the top of the pyramid that are making all of the decisions.
Got it. Okay. So you did this for how many years?
So it was 4 years that I was operating at that level before I decided that I needed a new challenge, because that's really what it was. I got bored. I know it's a horrible thing to say.
Not at all. I think I love that it only took you 4 years to make that decision. So take us through that, because I'm sure that wasn't a light decision to shift. So take us through that season of your life.
Yeah, it was a really interesting time. So things that we don't talk about, especially those at the very, very top, because we're paranoid and somebody honestly is always out to get you. So a couple of things to know: when you are a woman inside of a technology company, inside of a financial services company, you're the only one. The only one. I had nobody that looked like me. I had nobody that I could talk to. I had no mentors. And if there was a woman above me organizationally, she was single and a workaholic.
So is that the reason why? Because at that age, usually women are having babies and they don't want to devote their entire life to the job, so they get passed up.
I think that they get passed up. I think that they're ruled out just by virtue of what people consider baggage. We could probably do 15 podcasts on, why women struggle once they hit middle management to make it farther up the pipeline. But it was hard for me to get there. And I didn't even know that's where I was headed. But what I can say is that I've always had a strong point of view that if you tell me I can't do something, watch me do it anyway. And
That's
I'm going to do
such your vibe.
better than you and faster than you and all the things, right? So I got there out of sheer will and determination and to prove everybody wrong. But I was alone. And I talk a lot on my podcast and in other venues around the power of relationships. The thing that nobody says is that it's incredibly lonely at the top of a company. And if you're a woman at the top of a company, it's just you, and you don't have trusted advisors. You don't have anybody to turn to because it doesn't exist. And so I didn't know that. And when I got up there and I realized I'm on my own and people are coming to get me on a really constant basis. And then I got what I thought was really lucky and had a female CEO join me almost at the same time. And it turned into an absolute disaster. I became a whistleblower, which is not something I ever thought that I was going to do. The ripples
Can
are
you
still
talk about that?
What I can say is that, because we're a few years out now, we were in the middle of a global pandemic. They had placed a leader in our organization that by all accounts was not qualified. There was lots of documentation about the fact that...
Was this the CEO or somebody else?
It was the CEO. And there was a really toxic culture being propagated by the CEO. There was a lot of gaslighting happening. There was a lot of harassment happening, retaliation. And I had stepped in to kind of be the buffer. And it wasn't so much to protect her, but it was to shield the hundreds of employees that we had working. And so I became her translator, and I became the face of the company. I became, what was good. And that was a heavy weight to carry because I wasn't the CEO. And I had my own challenges. And the problem with that was that I became affiliated with her. So in the eyes of the outsiders, I wasn't necessarily part of the problem, but I definitely had a stigma. And eventually, when I realized exactly what was happening and that I had to speak up in order to save the company, literally in order to save the company, I did. And I did in the most loud, pull all of the strings, call in all of the networks. Like I was calling people that were retired that had a lot of influence and pull in other continents. And we did it. We ousted her. And that was the right thing to do. But I was marked as a whistleblower. And so what that meant is that I was dead woman walking. Because as much as they say that you're protected from that perspective, you have a scarlet letter on you. There was no future in the US. I could have gone to Europe and had a future. But for a year, I carried that weight. The company was thriving. The employees were doing incredibly well. Everybody was so happy. We had a new interim leader. Like things were on the outside fantastic, but on the inside, I was target number one because I was the one that dared to speak up. I was the one that dared to call people out and very large authority figures, and I was the one that dared to call in every favor that I had in order to make a change, which was the right change. And at the time, I had an executive tell me, the one thing that I want you to do is take care of the business. That's your top priority. And I took that really seriously. I considered leaving at the time because it would have been a lot easier to walk away and let somebody else deal with the mess. Let somebody else try to figure out what to do with her. Let somebody else care for the employees. But I decided that that wasn't me. Ethically speaking, I had hundreds of people relying on me to pay their mortgages and to be happy at work and to ensure that they could retire when they wanted to. And God help me, we were in the middle of a pandemic. So we had insurance clients and all sorts of other people that needed us to not fall apart. And so when we came out of that, I was exhausted. And the upside was that my team became incredibly high performing. So they didn't really need me. They needed me for coaching and mentorship, but day to day, I wasn't in the business anymore. So I like to say I kind of sat, in that glass office and looked down at all the people and said, well, look at how happy they are. They're doing what they want. And I knew that it was time to change. And then we had more leadership changes and the company was changing some more. And I just didn't have it in me to fight the fight anymore. To fight those that were after my job, to fight to prove that I deserved my seat. Because once you get it, you have to keep earning it when you're a woman. You don't just get to sit there and be comfortable. And so I decided it was time to kind of push reset and find something else to do. I had done the work that I could do. I had left the legacy that I wanted to leave, and it was time to open a new door.
And where did you go at that point?
So I had a founder approach me who had a really cool business idea. It was super disruptive, and I love new technology and I like making noise, as that last story probably identified. And so it was what I can now say was an opportunity too good to be true. And so I jumped in with both feet. I was really excited to build multiple businesses at the same time and learn things I hadn't learned before. And hindsight 2020, because I just had a conversation with a lawyer about this, a couple of weeks ago, you should listen to the expert advice that you're given, because that lawyer told me to walk away. It was bad. The smells bad is what he said at the time, and it still smells bad today. But I was really blinded by new and shiny and exciting because I had been really, really wiped out in the prior job. So I jumped in, and then it was exactly what one expects a startup to be. It was disorganized. It wasn't well thought out. We pivoted the business model a lot of times. And I believe in startups. I think that they, when done properly and correctly with the right foundational basis, are really good for the economy. The approach that this founder took just wasn't one that was going to lead to success. And so, about 10 months in, we had to call it quits. They're out of money, and our value systems were really misaligned. And that happens sometimes.
So do you think, because I know the background of that story, and in hindsight, do you think the reason why, or I'm sure there were many reasons why ultimately it fell apart, but do you think the big reason is because it was so scattered, because they did change business models and, maybe like a little shiny object syndrome, a little too unfocused?
When you're going to start a business, whatever it is, you can decide that you want to start selling the flowers that you're growing in your front yard, or you can decide that you are going to introduce new financial models and disrupt the economy as you know it. Either direction, you need to know where you're going. You need to establish a strategy. You need to declare, this is what I am and I'm not doing. And then you have to make sure that you build a really strong foundation, because what I do know absolutely is that the market is going to shift and pivot. The products and services that you offer day one are not the same that you offer year 5. It's just any business. It doesn't matter what it is. However, the mechanics of how a business functions, specifically in the US economy, are steady state. You're going to have you're going to have to pay taxes every quarter. That's just the way that it goes, right? You're going to have to make sure that you have contracts in place with your third-party providers, because we like to sue people here in the United States. There's a lot of, you have to manage your money. You need to know your data. You need to know how much money is coming in and how much money is going out. There are foundational things that you need to really establish in order to have a successful business. And with that startup specifically, none of that was established. And it's okay day 1. It's not okay day 200.
Yeah.
And so I think that makes the difference between a business that has a fighting chance at making it past year 1, and what's going to sink well before that.
Okay. And we are going to get to your advice on all of that, because you are the go-to resource for all of us who are trying to optimize and scale our own businesses. So we are going to get to that. But I want to, before we dive into that, I want to get and dive a little bit more into your story, because it's fascinating to me. So, okay, I was just kind of getting an idea of the timeline of what your career looked like, just so I can have it straight. So let's go back to you being ultimately a whistleblower in this corporate tech business, the only woman at the top, well, until the CEO came in. How old were the boys at this time?
So the boys were 9, 7, and 5.
How did you do it?
Really
just pure grit?
Yeah, 100%. So from 2016, so I had a 3-year-old, 3, 5, and 7. Starting in 2016, I had a global position inside of that company, a global executive position. So I had always had this goal. When I got into corporate world, I said, before I'm 40, I'm going to be a vice president. Rang the bell at 37. It was great. Until it wasn't.
Yeah.
and what that meant was I was on an airplane 3 weeks out of the month. And when I say airplane, I mean, I'm flying from San Francisco to Munich, Germany. That's a 9-hour flight. I'm leaving on a Sunday night, and then I'm coming home on a Thursday evening, afternoon. So I'm literally in the air for 18 hours and on the ground for maybe 72. And I did that for 18 months. So I had a 3-year-old at the time, right? That was the youngest one. I did that for 18 months. And it required, that period of time taught me exactly what it was going to require. I took another role later where I was home for about a year, barely traveling. And then the travel started, it repeated itself, except I was doing it domestically until COVID hit. So I had about a 4-year period where I was on the road 3 weeks out of the month for at least 10 months of the year. And all that it equated to was having massive systems in place. And a massive amount of organization. And my husband at the time stayed home, but to be clear, he was not helpful. And so while there was an adult supervision. I guess nobody was going to burn the house down. I was still Saturday and Sunday making dinners for all of the nights that I was going to be gone, because the kids knew how to microwave stuff so they could heat up their own food. I was ordering groceries once we were able to do that from the airport lounge, so that the groceries would be sitting on the doorstep when I got home so I could put them away at midnight. I was arranging carpools and scheduling doctor's appointments to only happen on Fridays because those were the only days that I was home. And I had a system for everything, because I was basically living a single life of a mother that was on the road with a bunch of very small children, and blocking and tackling somebody that wasn't being very helpful. And that's how we rolled, and that's how we did it. And the kids are resilient and they learn stuff. So like when mom would drive to school and she was on a call, they knew to be quiet. My kids are the only kids that on the way to school in the morning would be silent for 40 minutes.
Okay, can you give us a tip around that? Because mine have not learned that trick yet.
I think that it comes to like treating them like humans and not
never
aliens,
mind.
right? So we had, the running joke at preschool was that I was the only mom that could show up like in a full business suit and not end up with glue or paste or whatever on me, because all I did was say to my kids, dry clean only, and they would back up. Like they knew, right? So, and we explained that dry clean only means that it costs, like, this is how much it costs every time you get your finger paint on mom's pants, right? And so at a very early age, I had very direct conversations with them around mom has to work. And today that looks like mom needs to be in a meeting while she takes you to school. And remember that when mom works, mom gets paid. And when mom gets paid, that means you get to play baseball. It means that you get to, I don't know, have all these movies in this closet, because at the time we had DVDs in the house. I know that's not a thing anymore. You get to go to Disneyland literally whenever you want, because that was what we did. We went to Disneyland a lot. We live in California. It was easy to get to. But I always equated it to, it's important that I can focus and that we can all attend this meeting together, because this is what it's going to enable in our lives. On the flip side, because again, I was the only woman in most of these meetings, I would get into a call in the car and I'd be like, just so y'all know, my 3 kids are in the car. So you are now having a Frank's family meeting. So if you would like a 7-year-old to opine on your security measures, they're here. Just let me know.
And we're going to invoice you for any comments that they make.
We are. It's now a $5,000 call. But treating them like humans from a really early age and allowing them in and understanding that work is good and that it delivers value into their lives that they can actually understand and feel, it made it really possible, because then they understood the importance of what I was doing. And we also had a lot of conversations around respect. Like, this person has taken time out to talk to me. I'm taking time out to talk to them. So we need to be respectful of the time that they're giving us. And this is what it looks like. And to this day, they're great about it. All I have to do is say I'm in a meeting, or, hey guys, I'm going to be in a meeting in 5 minutes, and it's like ghost town.
That's really good. That's really good. I don't paint the full picture. I mean, I think Cruz is getting to the age where he could understand that now. Before, I mean, if it's just too complicated, but I think that's actually a brilliant tip, explaining, hey, here's what's in it for you. Like, let's be respectful, but also here's what you get out of this respect too. This is how it trickles down. So if you help me here, I'm going to help you. It's going to support you in the future. I think that's brilliant. So the kids are very young. Hubby is not helpful. I know there are listeners right now who unfortunately can relate to that too. I feel like, this is a generalization, but I've heard mostly either one or another side. Either your partner just gets it and they're the teammate, or they just don't. And there's very little in between as far as like the women that I've worked with. So unfortunately, you come from a situation where your partner just wasn't helpful. How did you navigate that? Because you have to be not only are you a mom of these three boys? And you're clearly doing an amazing job. If they're listening to you, they're keeping their hands off, like they get it, you know, like they kind of, it almost seems like they kind of took the role of the supportive partner in a sense. They probably sensed that mom really needed them to have her back. But with these three young kids, you climbing this ladder with all of this responsibility in a role where you're traveling so often, you're one of the few women who get it. You don't have people that you can really talk to. How did you navigate specifically having a partner who wasn't as supportive as you could have used in that time?
It's a really important question because like you, I think there's a lot of people that are living this reality right now and are carrying a ton of shame around it. And don't want to like speak out loud about what's really happening. So a few things. When I don't care how old you are, when you get married, you tell yourself a fairy tale of how things are going to play out. And then life happens. It just is. I don't care if I was 29 when I got married. I don't care if you're 22 or 45. Like you walk into that with rose-colored glasses on and a fairy tale in your head. The thing that we do not recognize, especially as women, is that who they met is who we are. And we're going to continue to evolve, but that core DNA of who we are is never going to change. I had somebody say to me very early on, it was very early in this traveling period of time, they were trying to get me to move to Europe. Like people were flying out to meet with my husband to try to convince him to move to Europe. I mean, like there was like a full court press on trying to get us over there because that was kind of where the company was headquartered at the time and the most opportunity for me professionally. And he wasn't having it. And this woman who was a mentor for me for a very long time, it was like midnight. She had flown in. We were in like a Denny's because it was the only thing open. And she looked right at me and she said, did you just wake up one day a couple of years ago and become a high performer? And I said, what are you talking about? And she's like, he married somebody that strives for more. He married somebody that's a high performer. He married somebody that is going to bust through walls and ceilings and all of the things. That's who you were. And one of the reasons that I had mentioned that I started, working at 15 or even earlier is because that's who I was. I've been a hustler from the jump, and that I never hid that from him. But the thing is that when you get married and you tell yourself this fairy tale of how things are going to play out, sometimes you ignore who you really are. And so I tried to put on that whole entire costume, and that's what I refer to it as best wife in the world, best homemaker in the world, best mom in the world, best corporate executive in the world, right? Like I carried all of these costumes. I literally had a massive Louis Vuitton bag where all the costumes sat, and depending on the situation, I put them on. And so for a very long time with him, I just ignored the fact that he wasn't being supportive. In my head, it was like, you expect me to be the homemaker and clean the house and do the dishes and have all those meals prepared before I leave and like take care. That I'm supposed to be making your life, because you're the husband, easier. And I literally woke up.
And he wasn't working at the time?
He was not working at the time. So he was supposed to be the stay-at-home dad, right? We were supposed to be rewriting narratives. And one day I was on an airplane. I don't think I'll ever forget it. And I was, managing all the schedules and stuff. And I'm like, this is not what we're doing. And I got home, and because he was a night owl and he was still up, and I said, listen, you decided you wanted to stay home and run this place. So you need to run this place. Here effectively are all of the things that I'm delegating to you, and I'm not doing them anymore. I'd love to tell you that worked well. It did not. But I had to kind of set a boundary for myself. So when you're asking kind of the question, like, how do you navigate this unsupportive environment? I had to, and it wasn't an ultimatum, but it was like, this is what I need from you. And if you can't give it to me, then things are going to have to change. And he didn't step up, and he didn't do what I needed him to do, and continued to be wholly confrontational, not even unsupportive, but confrontational about the strides I was making professionally. And I had to decide that his opinion didn't matter anymore. And I wasn't in a situation where I could leave the environment at the time. And there's a whole bunch of reasons for that. But I had to have a very big girl conversation with myself and say, what do I want for my life? And if continuing to listen to his opinion and doing and pandering to his needs, is that going to get me where I want to go? And the answer was resounding no. And the direction he was sending me in was not going to give my kids the life that I wanted. It wasn't going to create the humans that I wanted to create as humans. And so I had to make a decision and say, then I have to get on the path that's going to get me where I need to be and grow, where I can feel most fulfilled, and where I can ensure that I am raising good humans that are going to be productive in the world and beyond. And that is a hard decision to make. So I'm not saying it lightly. And for those that are in this position, I know that what I just said is a whole bunch of scary things, but you've got to decide if you're going to fight for yourself, because if you're not going to fight for yourself, nobody is fighting for you. Mel Robbins says this over and over and over again, but nobody is coming. She's like super famous for saying this, right? Nobody is coming. If you want to achieve a fitness goal, you got to do it yourself. If you want to lose weight, you got to do it yourself. If you want to make $1 million, you got to do it yourself. And if you are in an environment where you are waiting for that partner to step up and support you, and they have not demonstrated that they have the willingness to do it, they're not going to. So what are you going to do?
So that looked like, I'm sure I can only imagine how that must have felt. Okay. So you have this opportunity to go to Europe. It sounds like you wanted to go. Your company clearly wanted you to go. Your husband was like, it's not happening. That's not what I want. And not only that, he wasn't being supportive. You come home, you say, this is what we need to do. You need to meet me halfway. We need to be a team here. Here's the support I need. And he resisted it. Wasn't happening. So at that point, you just decided, like, what was it? Just this thing like, okay, I got to do this myself. I'm sure you were faced with many decisions at that point. You couldn't, like you said, you couldn't leave yet, but I'm sure there was a point where, like, should I leave my job? Should I back down or take, like a lower position or a less stressful position? What do I do? And your decision was, I'm just going to do it all for a season. And you knew that season it wouldn't be forever, but that's what you decided. Like, you weren't willing to compromise on what you wanted for your boys, their home life, nor were you willing to compromise on what you wanted as a career or as a career woman in that moment.
Yeah, it was an and situation. This is what I want for myself.
I love that.
This is what I want for my family. And this is what we're going to do. And then I attacked it like I do anything else. So we've got to figure out that the primary goal at that point was, how do we get on secure enough financial footing? Because that guy loved to think that I was a money tree. In fact, my kids last night said MOM is actually an acronym for made of money. Like, I'm like, oh, gentlemen, let's have a converstion. Oof. They were joking, right? But that's a legacy of their dad's way of thinking. And so I built a plan and I said, so what's priority number one? It's to get on stable financial footing. So how are we going to do that? And ladies, this is probably going to scare the holy bejesus out of you, but I canceled all the credit cards. I canceled every single one. And then I called the debt consolidation company, even though I didn't need it. And I said, so how do we make this work? And they're like, oh, well, you just don't pay your bills. And then we start negotiating a settlement on your behalf. So I ended up paying significantly less in our remaining credit card debt. My credit score went into the toilet and I'm still building it out. But I literally was like, you're cut off, dude. Like, you're done.
Wow.
Like, if the first thing I need to do is take over pure financial control and stop this runaway train, which had us living paycheck to paycheck and bonus check to bonus check, and then like that cycle going over again, I'm just cutting you off. And by virtue, I'm cutting myself off because I'm the one that got punished for it with the credit score. But like, we're done. Game over.
What was his response?
What could he say? Because my response was, go get a job.
Right. And he just didn't want to do that.
No, he didn't. Because he had told, and we all do this, he had told himself a narrative that his role as a stay-at-home dad was too important and too necessary inside of our family structure But he couldn't order groceries or take the kids to their doctor appointments? Yeah. What? But that's a parent. And this, Allie, I guarantee you that thousands of your listeners can be like, yeah, I get that. I
I
feel
already know.
like I know that, because this is the reality of it. Nobody talks about it because it carries so much shame, you know, but I wasn't in a situation where I could afford to get a lawyer. I wasn't in a situation where I could afford to go get an apartment. I wasn't in a situation where I could do any of those things. And I was making multiple six figures a year. It wasn't like I was, you know, making 25K at Starbucks. But I had to take over control. And so if I was going to live a life of this is who I am, and this is what I want for my family, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, then I had to start saying no somewhere. And that was the first place that I started saying no.
And how long ago was this?
I feel like that was probably 4 years ago.
Okay. So you're actively going through a divorce right now, just so we can tie this up in a bow. But I'm curious for anybody who, and this is a complicated question, but you said a few minutes ago, you said who you marry is who you marry, or however you said that, right? Like the person you are when you got married is the person that you're going to be. We're all going to grow, we're all going to evolve, but the bones are there. The structure is there. So you married this person. It's not working out. If you could go back in time and obviously like this person gave you 3 beautiful boys, right? It happened for a reason. Okay. But if you were there red flags before you guys got married that maybe you overlooked and maybe you would have made a different decision?
Yeah. I mean, fully transparently, like, we should have never gotten married. We are two very completely different people. And he had provided enough evidence very early on. I had known this guy since I was 15 years old. He sat behind me in my Spanish 3 class, and the way that I met him is he pulled my hair. And I'm not joking. Like, I could not stand him in high school. You know, and we just were not this wired the same at all. And because I know myself well enough, I was blinded by the goals that I had set. Because I didn't just set professional goals, I set personal goals. My 25th birthday did not get out of bed. Because I had been telling myself a story since I was 5 that by 25, I was going to be married and I was going to have a kid. And I had neither.
Okay. So you were on a fast track to get married, to have the career, the husband, 100%. The family.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up inside of a very big Catholic family. I live in the same town right now that I grew up in. And when I grew up here, we were like a farming community. We were known for being the chicken capital of the world. That was like our claim to fame, right? Everybody knew everybody. Everybody graduated from college. Everybody moved back. Everybody married each other. That was just how things played out. And as much as I had big city dreams and I had moved to the big city and I had come back and I had these big jobs and all those things, when you are a small human and you're goal oriented and you set those goals for yourself, they don't leave you. So I didn't even necessarily realize as I was looking back, I do, but as I was going through this, all I was doing was achieving the goals I had set for myself.
Just running a program.
Any means possible. And the big personal goals were get married and have 4 kids. Literally, I wanted 4 boys. I got 3 of them. That 3rd pregnancy sucked, so it was the 4th. But like, that's who I am. I am a high performer. I am a goal setter. I shoot for the stars and I get there every single time. And so, yes, there were red flags. What I'll also say is, knowing him as I know him, a lot of the negative personality traits were not displayed to me because they were saved and given as gifts to his friends. So I got the best of him because the worst of him was directed at these people that he had known since he was a small kid and would take it. And then when they became adults and they didn't want to take it anymore, I became the only audience. And so there definitely was an awakening period where I was like, who are you? Like, why are you, you know, I can vividly remember, and this happened over and over and over again, where I would say, like, I don't allow people to talk to me the way that you're talking to me right now. Like, in my grown-up big person world that's not inside this house, nobody gets to talk to me this way. So I don't know why you think that you get to talk to me this way. I mean, we would literally have these conversations. And so I picked wrong. I should have never married him. I should have never gotten into the environment. And I was purely driven by the need to achieve a goal that I had set. without the maturity to understand that sometimes how you achieve the goal is much more important than actually achieving the goal.
That's powerful. How you achieve the goal, the journey, the path toward the goal is more important than achieving the goal itself. That's really powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this idea, because we all do this on some level until we have the awareness that we're doing it. What program did we pick up from Disney, from, whatever religion you were raised on, your parents or whatever, what was downloaded into your psyche as something that you needed or should strive for, that you blindly are running toward or barreling toward, that you don't even really want, or maybe you want it, but not necessarily in that way, right? Or you're telling yourself some limiting story that it's this person or nothing. It's by this time or not. It has got to be this perfect amount, this perfect job, or whatever. And that level of control is so stifling and limiting. So thank you so much for sharing that with us, because what you're going through, I mean, I had a close seat and view to, the last few months of you navigating a divorce, and it was really painful to watch. And I can imagine, with a family and all, and so much time invested and history, obviously it's not easy regardless of your situation, but especially with yours. And I respect you so much for making that decision for your family and for yourself, and how you've come this far with such frustrating, or frustrating lack of support. So thank you for sharing that with us. When we're talking about this programming and these goals that we all kind of set for ourselves. So you got married, you ended up C-suite exec working for this company. It sounds like you kind of burnt yourself out a little bit, and then you were able to pivot pretty drastically. I'm going to ask you the same question as I did with your husband. If you could go back and, for anybody listening who is currently in corporate or who wants to remain in corporate, if you could do anything different related to your corporate career, what would that look like?
So one of the things that I was known for very, very early was being the one that would run into the fire when everybody else was running out. Like if there was a massive chaos, business is failing, everybody's getting fired, whatever, I would be the one that would get called and they say, do you want in? You want to help? You want to turn it around? And I always said yes. I was always up for the challenge. And I built my career by being known for somebody that could see the big vision through all of the chaos and the noise, inspire others to act, even when it wasn't clear if the results were going to yield what we want, and to be incredibly decisive and deliver results, right? That was what I was known for. And I built my career based on that. I was a problem solver. You could literally put me in any situation and I would find the people that could help me, and then we would get stuff done. And I think what I lost sight of as I moved up the ladder was there was this push and pull between doing the sort of work that I loved, which was helping organizations transform themselves, helping to, save the ship, whatever it might be, kind of in the fire, and what was expected of me to continue to proceed up the next level of hierarchy. And so looking back, the roles that I was in the shortest amount of time, or that I was hatching escape plans for before I even started them, were ones that I chose purely because it was going to advance my career. It was going to change the title on my business card. It was going to give me what I perceived to be gravitas. And what I have realized now is that how you treat people and the relationships that you build and your track record for performance is what matters most. And you can put, honestly, you can put whatever job title you want on your LinkedIn entry or your resume or a business card that you print out. Nobody fact checks that. But what you can't replace is your actual experience, how much time you spent doing things that you love, how much growth and excellence you've achieved by doing things that you enjoy. And if I had spent more time focused on that, I may not have left the corporate structure to go to a startup. Maybe I would still be inside doing those things. But what I can say is that now that I look at any opportunity, I had a recruiter laugh at me the other day because I was actually I don't care what the title is. I care what the work is, the people that I'm working with, and how much you're going to pay me for it. And they're like, but you're a C-suite executive. And I'm like, that doesn't mean anything. I'm the CEO of my household. I mean, we throw around the term CEO and it fill in the blank all of the time. And so I think for those that are in corporate, want to stay in corporate, don't see a way out of corporate, are trying to do some sort of side hustle, but aren't really sure if that's a thing. What you need to really be clear about, what you need to get quiet about, what you need to spend time really getting specific about is what lights you up. What do you love to do? And not, I love to fill in an Excel spreadsheet, but it's what sort of work do you like to do? What sort of impact do you like to have? When you describe what you do to somebody that knows nothing about what you do, what adjectives and words are you using that not only describe how you're showing up, but how you're working and how you're interacting with other people. And I think once you get really clear on that, where you work doesn't matter so much because it's all about what you're doing and how you're spending your time.
So drop the ego. Titles are great. And if you find a job that has the trifecta of the title and the pay and the work that you love to do, congratulations, you've made it. But if it doesn't, what I'm hearing you say is so much more important than the title, than what it looks on a resume, is the fulfillment. Of course, pay is very important. But more so the relationships that you have and maintain, and then also that level of fulfillment in the job. Okay, cool. That's helpful. Thank you. So where on your path did you decide to dip your toe in to entrepreneurship, and what led you to that decision? Because it's so fascinating to me, because the last thing you need are more things on your plate. And here you are, you have a business, you have multiple different types of things going on. You have a podcast, you have these 3 boys. I mean, there's so many things that you manage and that you take on. So I would love to hear what led you to the decision to take on another thing as big as entrepreneurship.
I mean, what else am I going to do? No, joking aside, initially it was necessary, right? So I think many women specifically have a journey into network marketing that takes them as far or as little as they want to go. And the pandemic hit and I was crazy bored. I was in a house with somebody that I didn't really like being around, and had a very different schedule than I did. I was used to being on the road all the time or in an office and all of a sudden I was in my house, or if I wasn't in my house, I was in an office, but it was silent. And I was the lead champion of 8-hour workdays because I didn't want people killing themselves. So I had all of this time on my hands because I wasn't sitting in an airport or on an airplane or doing anything. And so I fell into network marketing partially to fill my time because I was bored and I needed something productive to do. And hey, let's make some money. And, the money tree was not dropping leaves like crazy. So it was helpful. And then I realized this really isn't my jam. It's great for the people that are successful at it and enjoy doing it, but it just really wasn't how I wanted to spend my time. What I did, however, though, is learn a ton of skills. So I started learning a ton of things that I would have never learned inside of a corporation. I learned all about social media strategy, and I learned about all of these tools that are out there on how to use these things. And I learned how to use my platform, and that I could, I always say, give me a microphone and a stage and, I'll keep you entertained for days on end. And so I all of a sudden had this platform where I could communicate and share what I knew. And it was really enjoyable. So the next thing I said was, how can I monetize it? And so then I just started playing around with things because I joked initially with what else am I going to do, but it was kind of that. I'm not somebody that's going to sit around and watch Netflix for days on end. It's just not who I am. And so I had an opportunity to say, well, how can I grow and develop? What can I learn? How can I monetize it? What can I do with it? And really have been running experiments since April of 2020 with what can I do? What can I learn? Now, how can I convert it into something that could potentially make money? And, where do we want to go? It was never, and still to this day, is not necessarily intention to retire myself or to replace my corporate income or do any of those things. But I have time. I know it doesn't sound like I do with all of the children and all the things, but there's time. And I'm using to spend my time to help other people in their businesses and to continue to educate and grow myself personally and professionally. I'm not choosing to use my time by staying up to date on whatever it is you people are watching on streaming platforms.
You mean you're not up to speed on Kyle Richards and Dorit and my Housewives of Beverly Hills and what's going on there?
I mean,
Mauricio and Kyle, are they together? Or are they not? Come on.
Girls and Bravo. So the one thing that I'll carve a smidge of time out for is that. But
Okay,
I think even then, I'm not. We're probably 2 weeks behind. It's like an hour here, an hour there, a week. It's not. There's so much time. If you actually look at I actually just recorded a podcast that dropped this week that we have so much time that we waste every day. I ran a little bit of an experiment with myself when my life changed and I had to be more available for the kids. And I said, okay, so I'm going to stop working 9 hours a day and I'm going to start working 6. Guess what? I was still delivering the exact same results in the exact same time frame, and I was working 3 hours less. And so then I said, well, I wonder what happens if I work 4. You know what? Still as productive, still delivering the same results on the same timeline, but now all of a sudden I had 5 hours a day extra. That's 25 hours a week.
Yeah.
Of course I can have a side hustle. If I can carve out 25 extra hours a week, it's a no-brainer. So for me, it was just how can I use the time to the best way possible.
And what you just said is so true, by the way. This is why I'm such a proponent for when you kind of know what you're doing for online business and you know how to create offers and the foundational things that you need to do. Go. When you get an idea, put it out there. I'm such a proponent for stop overthinking and put the thing out and just freaking go, because I've done it the other way. We all have, where you give yourself a week to iron out something and to get all the details. And it's you don't need a freaking week. You need an hour of focused attention in deciding I'm going to get this done in an hour versus, and if you give yourself all that time, you're going to give yourself that time and it's not going to be spent wisely. So that's a fantastic tip. And I encourage everybody listening right now to test that yourself. What in your job, in your business is taking up X amount of hours, and test out. I love going from 9 to 6 or, 4 hours to 2 hours or whatever. Because it's very gratifying and exciting. And then, magically now you have half a day or a quarter of a day or even an extra hour to devote to your health, your wellness, whatever you want to do. So that's really powerful. Another powerful thing that I'm noticing, kind of a theme in your world too, that I just want to highlight before we go, because I really want to pick your brain on small business tips, and I want to shift gears there. But one thing that I want to highlight too is this idea that some things in life are meant to be stepping stones, not where you live and plant roots. And it sounds like you've really mastered this. There are things that come into your life to shape you, to give you wisdom. They're not meant to stay forever, whether it's a person, whether it's a situation, a job, whatever. And some of us, I think some people that look at themselves as fiercely loyal, I can say this because I'm one of these people where that loyalty is almost to your detriment, and you hold on to things and people and situations for too long versus allowing life to flow, right? It's that controlling. So I just want to highlight and applaud you for I mean, I'm sure it hasn't been perfect, but it seems like, in the corporate space and then this business and even your marriage, which is it's a hard pill to swallow, obviously for you in the situation, but for other people to hear. Sometimes we marry the wrong one, guys. It happens, and you're much better off owning it. Obviously, like, do what you need to do, try, but like, if it's not going anywhere, do what you got to do, and don't make yourself a bad person for doing that for yourself. So I just want to highlight that, because I think that if more of us allowed that level of flexibility and understanding in our life, and ask yourself that question, is this a forever thing, or is this just a stepping stone to the next thing? We'd be able to grow a lot faster and probably be happier. Would you agree?
I agree completely. And one of the things that was coming to mind is, just because you outgrow something doesn't mean that you failed. And I think that we get ourselves so wrapped up in failure. Like, one of the things that I teach my children all the time is take accountability. Like, just own it. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It maybe means that you made a bad decision, but just own it and move on. And we have to find a way consistently to take accountability for the decisions that we make, the moves that we do or don't make, own it, give ourselves some grace, and then just move on. There is no shame in saying, this once served me and now no longer does. Thank you so much. It gave me all of these great things. This is what I learned. Even if it was a colossal, firestorm or whatever it was, you still have something good that came from it. So take it and own it and move on. One of the things that I see women do constantly is apologize. They just I am so sorry. Like, those people that say they're sorry to their own shadow, when they're walking around the house. And I think it really comes down to just not wanting to admit that sometimes we pick wrong and sometimes we do something wrong, and there's no shame in it. It's just a matter of take accountability, move on. You're not a failure. You can pick yourself back up. You're going to be fine. You really are.
Yeah, because when you're not busy shaming yourself for being human and choosing wrong, and we could even play with the idea of like, there's no wrong choice because it leads you to the next thing if you allow it to, So like, when you're not shaming yourself and you're able to take accountability, now we're able to extract the wisdom from this situation that wasn't a forever thing. So you can go find the next thing or the forever or whatever. So I just think that that's gold. So thank you for being open and sharing that with us. Okay, let's switch gears.
Okay.
Let's talk business. Business, baby. Okay, so currently what you're doing is, as far as like your current business, is you're playing this, what you're calling an on-call COO, right? So you have all of this experience, obviously from corporate and a lot of other things that you didn't highlight in the show, but business, small business, especially. I mean, all business, but especially small business, and how to optimize and scale it. So first and foremost, what do you consider a small business?
So I think that there's degrees of small business. There's the way that the IRS codes you. So anything under 180 million is small business, just in case you're wondering. So so there's that.
All right. Get all of us here.
100%. But I see business in tranches. So there are the companies that are on the road to 1 million. And then there are companies that are sitting in the 1 to 3 space. And then you have about 3 to 10. And then
is this annually?
Annually. Yeah.
Okay.
So really what we're talking about when I say that, and you point out a good note, like my niche of businesses ranges from 0 to 750 million. So like, that's really, and it's a big band. And what I have the ability to do is understand what that $1 billion company needs to have from an operations perspective, and then can break it down to bite-sized pieces to the business that literally just got their incorporation documents from the IRS and the state, and are starting to sell their first product. And I can break it down to you that if you want to get to 1 billion one day, if you want to get to 1 million one day, if you want to get to 5 million, whatever it might be, these are the things that you need to have and when you need to have them in place to ensure a solid foundation, to ensure that once you build, you can optimize, to ensure that once you optimize, you can actually scale. And you don't, I'm very famous for saying this, and everybody that holds a C-suite title always cringes when I say this, but a business doesn't really need anybody that's the chief of something until they're at about 5 million. And then really what that is a chief of sales.
Ooh, okay.
And so, and it gets very unpopular because everybody loves to call them themselves the chief of something.
Yeah.
But the thing is that, until you get above 5 million, you need experts. You need people that can help you execute and help you operate your business at you need somebody that can operate marketing. You need somebody that can operate fulfillment. If you have actual products, you need somebody that can actually operate your business and pay payroll and do all those things. But you don't need somebody that's got that chief title, because they're really there to talk big vision, big picture, big strategy. And so the reason that I call myself an on-call COO is because I come in and you, just like an on-call doctor, you call me when you need something. Hey, we're about to hire employees. What do we need to do? And currently, this is what I'm doing with a startup. We're running payroll for the first time today, right? They had just hired their first employees this month. So how do we do payroll? How do we create an employment contract? What else do we need to do? Oh, we need a holiday schedule so we can communicate to the employees when there's paid holidays. I come in, they said, we're ready to hire employees. Can you please help us figure out what to do? And that's what we did, right?
So
I'm not
good.
here 40 hours a week. They're not paying me my humongous salary that I would normally make as a C-suite executive, but they're bringing me in to help them define, optimize, and scale their business based on something specific that they have.
Yeah, because nobody knows how to do that stuff.
No.
I mean, and furthermore, a lot of us are creatives, right? So like that makes me, I mean, just hearing you talk, I'm like glazing over. I'm like, oh, like drooling out of like, well, you're speaking another language, talk creative to me. I don't know what you're saying. So I love that you have this very left strategic brain that can come in and support. And I want, like, you creatives out there, you need to call Melissa because she has strategy calls right now. Okay. I'm going to be hiring Melissa. Surprise. I'm telling you here, but this is what we need, because if that's not your wheelhouse, if you don't think in that way, or you don't want to, because you want to stay in your lane, you don't necessarily, and I thank you for saying that we don't need to be hiring COOs and CEOs and CFOs if we haven't freaking cracked 6 freaking figures yet, let alone 1 million, let alone 4. I think that that's incredible advice, because you hear a lot of chatter and it's all ego, right? It's like, oh, well, my CFO, let me, and it's like, wait, we don't even need that, which I think takes a lot of pressure off of us who are just trying to do what we love, but become more successful at that in terms of revenue, in terms of impact. So speaking of hiring, if somebody is a solopreneur right now, or maybe they have a few contractors, who do you recommend being the first employee hire? And I realize all businesses are different, but I don't know if there's like a general answer or some direction you can lead us. So
often what I recommend, there's a few ways of looking at this, and I want to tee back off to the CEO comment that you made. There is no shame in a founder or an owner of a business saying that they are not the CEO. They're two very different things.
Mm-hmm.
The best thing that you can do for yourself right now is go Google what the responsibilities are of a CEO and say, do I want to do that all day long? Because I'm guaranteeing you that most creatives are going to say, no, I don't want to do that. That sucks. It sounds super boring. I'm glazing over. So don't carry shame. Call yourself a founder. Call yourself the owner. You don't have to call yourself the CEO. But as far as the first hire goes, what I recommend is that for businesses that have clients, and spoiler alert, whether you're direct to consumer or you're business to business, you all have clients, that your very first hire is somebody that supports customer success. Because what is going to make or break your business is client retention and referrals. When
Mm-hmm.
you are small, the majority of your new business comes because somebody had an excellent experience and they tell somebody else. You can, and you know, everybody's going to come at me right now. You can pay for ads on Instagram and Facebook. You can do the best reels and YouTube videos and TikToks, and you can dance your heart out. The bottom line is that your credibility comes from people, real life people that know you and are willing to tell other people to come talk to you.
Straight
And
facts. Mm-hmm.
that's the way that it goes. And the way that you keep them tight and in your circle is by blowing their mind with customer experience. If you can pay somebody, I don't know, 30 grand, 50 grand a year, and they white glove experience every single business and every single human that comes into contact with you, nobody's going to leave. Everybody's going to be talking about how amazing you are. It's never a waste of money to invest in how you're servicing your people, ever.
Oh my gosh, that's such good advice. And you're so right. Right. I think as creatives, we get in this weird experience because if you're in a specific industry, you know who else is in your industry and you're probably following a lot of them. And it feels like you're a dime a dozen, and you are, but like the person who's following you or the person who chooses to work with you, you could be the one person that they go to for that specific thing forever, right? Like if you're a business coach or you're a mindset coach or whatever, like people need support at all levels. And if you do a good job with that first interaction, you can be the one for that specific thing that you're offering. But if you fumble the ball because you're trying to do it all yourself and you don't get back to messages and people have issues and they can't get a hold of you or they can't log into their stuff, then they're just going to say, this is too difficult. I'm moving on to so-and-so who also shares the same information.
100%. And I think one of the things that is most often overlooked about the importance of customer success is that if they're doing it well, they're in conversation with the clients and businesses that you support, and they're learning the other problems that they're having. So if you are in the business where you want to continue to introduce new offers, you want to introduce new products, you want to solve bigger and different problems, you're getting that from your customer success person because they're in real live conversations, helping them solve one problem. And they're also hearing about something else that they're suffering with. And in some cases, it might be, we're not going to do that. That's not a vertical that we're going to go into. But you know what? We know somebody that you should go talk to. And by solving a problem for them, by just giving them a referral, you've retained the client. And so the value is twofold in that customer success of, yes, of course you get to retain them, but they're also giving you a ton of information about what your competitors are doing, what other problems they're having. They can help you differentiate your business much faster if you have a customer success person keyed in and having actual real relationship building conversations as they come through.
Beautiful. Okay. So customer success, is there a second hire that would come naturally after that?
You definitely need somebody that's an operator within your business. So notice I say operator and not chief operating officer. So you need somebody that's going to do the things that are going to ensure that you don't sink your business. So they are going to be receiving every invoice that you get and ensuring it gets paid on time. Most of the small businesses that I see, on average, are paying 25% more for services than they should because they're paying late fees. Or they're paying those invoices on credit cards, and then they're not paying off their credit card balance, and they're paying interest. These are easy problems to solve. The operator also makes sure it's totally boring, you guys, but they make sure that everything in the business is running correctly. They make sure that emails aren't bouncing. They make sure that meetings are happening. They make sure that contracts are getting signed. They will remind you as a business owner, hey, this freelancer you hired for 3 months and their contract expires tomorrow. What are you going to do? The operator is the one that makes sure that all of the cogs in the machine are oiled and they're running smoothly. And it allows the owner, it allows the creative, it allows the person at the forefront to focus on what they're best at, which is generally product, sales, marketing, and client engagement. And they don't have to worry about all of the nits and gnats that's required in order to make sure business is running.
Got it. Okay. Anything else you want to add around hiring? Any advice for anybody what about the person listening who is feeling trepidatious about hiring and they're worried about spending the money. They think that they can handle it themselves. What advice would you give? Is there a certain level that you think somebody needs to bring on that first layer of support?
So there's a few things. The first thing that I'll say is for all small businesses, I recommend you don't hire an employee first. You hire a contractor first or a freelancer, and you hire them for a 3-month period. And whatever work you give them, what you want to do is make sure that by giving them that work, you're actually getting the result that you want. So the way that you figure out who that should be is very brass tacks. What do you hate doing? And what can you hand somebody that you never have to think about again? If it's going to require you to write copy or to proofread or double check for the whole duration of the contract, is not the right thing to delegate. This is literally like, I can give this to you and I don't have to think about it. Unless there's a problem, of course, but I can hand this over to you. And you will have a long list of administrative things. You'll have a long list of maybe other things that like I'll write copy all day, but I don't want to sit in Canva and create graphics. Great. That's something you can delegate. So contractor before employee always. And that's not only to do, it's to verify that you need the role, and it's also to make sure that you have the right fit, the right person.
Yes.
The second thing is handing off things that are going to actually free up your time. So this is your proof of concept period to say, if I give these things to somebody else, it's actually going to give me time back to do the things that I really need to focus on to move the business forward. If it doesn't do that, then you've missed the mark and you need to try again. Let the contractor go, start over, go again. Once you've confirmed that you have the right things, you've been able to hand them off to somebody successfully, you know how much time it's going to take, then you can hire the employee. What I do need to call out in all of these scenarios, contractor or employee, is that you always need to have a legal agreement between the two of you, between your company and their company, or your company and the individual, specifying the terms and conditions of the relationship, how much you're going to pay them, how you can terminate if they do not deliver. And there's a lot in some of my consulting arrangements, I do this for people on their behalf. It's one of the things I'm doing for a client right now. But you do not ever agree to pay somebody for work until you have a contract. Just don't do it.
Okay.
You will end up at some point not getting what you wanted and having to pay for it anyway.
Got it. That's huge advice. I've never heard anybody give that advice before, ever. So then would you recommend, because you said that you can do it, you would just need somebody in your corner who can support you in writing up that contract? Or do you recommend having a lawyer as a small business, in the background somewhere for certain specific purposes?
So I'm definitely not a lawyer, so I should preface that
Right.
with the legal advice I'm giving right now is based on my work experience. But what I can say is that small businesses can get themselves into a lot of trouble sometimes by hiring high-priced external resources, a CPA, when you really need a bookkeeper. You probably don't need a CPA because they're different, and a general counsel. And so what I recommend, most often small businesses, all you need is boilerplate templates for things to get through, and LegalZoom is a great resource for that. And if you are a creative and you're like, I don't understand, like this is Greek and I don't understand what this is, then what you can do is you can hire somebody at a significantly lower rate, like somebody like me that will say, I understand how all these things are structured. We're going to use an already lawyer approved template, and this is how we're going to make this go forward and make sure it looks great. On the flip side, often people, when they don't understand contracts or they get a notice in the mail, they will pay their attorney $500 an hour to tell them it's no big deal. Don't worry about it. Or here, let me draft an email on your behalf or whatever, when they don't really need them. And the current business that I'm working for has probably spent 50% more in legal fees than they needed to, because the founder is not well-versed in the topics. Whereas somebody like I am, who can read the documents, who can register your business with the Secretary of State, who can do any of those things, you're paying a fraction on the dollar. So you just need to, lawyers are good, yes. CPAs are good, yes. You just need to make sure that you're only using them when you absolutely have to.
Got it. Beautiful. That is I mean, we should come back and do a whole episode just on like step by step hiring, because I know, I mean, I'm like soaking it in. I'm going to go back and listen, like, okay, first customer service, got it. But I know so many other people. So I mean, just what you shared is game changing. So thank you for that. I guess my next question for you would be, what do you see? Because we've already talked about hiring, and I know we can make a lot of mistakes there. But what are some other big common mistakes that you see small business owners making early on when their goal truly is they're taking their business seriously? They want to get to 7 figures and beyond, but where do people trip themselves up that you see?
So it's in 2 lanes and they're very similar. I see a lot of business owners buy a bunch of tools very early. I'm going to automate this thing. I'm going to buy that thing. Tools are expensive. Often there's redundancies in their capabilities. And when you're small, you pay the most money that you'll pay for a tool. The bigger you get, the more negotiating power and leverage you have. So you can actually call a company and say, I understand that this is how much it is per seat, but what can we negotiate? And they will always give you a discount. But you have to be big enough to do that, right? So tools is one of them. And what that goes hand in hand with is that when you start automating things, you lose your ability to tell what's real and what's not real. And so data and metrics are going to tell you actually how your business is performing. So one of the things that business owners most often don't want to do, because it's not sexy and it's hard and it's math and it's all the things, is determine what key performance indicators they're going to use to measure their entire business. And this is, I know, but the data doesn't lie, because you'll be able to start to see, right? I mean, just think, Allie, if we use some examples that you gave, like if you had really tracked data at a specific level for offers that you sold for 2 weeks versus when you took that same offer and sold it for 7 days, right? And you could see how many DMs am I getting day 1? How many DMs am I getting day 2? When do people start to buy, right? Like how do we, and you were able to compare over and over, you'd be able to see, well, for an offer this size that gives us transformation, 7 days is the right selling period. 14 days is a waste of my time, or vice versa, right? Whatever it might be. If you start to track metrics and data, then you can determine how to bring offers into the world. You can determine what the right timing is to introduce products. Even over time, you're able to see, like, we should never launch a product in December because nobody wants to buy these things. They're all over on Amazon watching the deal of the day, right? Like you can really start to see those things, but often businesses don't, metrics are not sexy. They really are not. But they are what will make or break your business.
I think they're sexy when you start to understand them and you start to gamify it in a way that it begins working. It's not sexy when you first get started and you're like, I don't know what any of these means. And when you're not winning, that's not fun to look at, but it is. I mean, I've played around with more metrics lately than I have ever before. And, I'm going to talk more about that. And when you start to see the patterns and you start putting those patterns to use for you, and you start to see the results of that, that's when metrics get sexy.
100%. And that's the secret of big corporations. They drive every decision based on data. It's facts and it's data and it's information. And one of the things that every small business needs to understand is that the more data that they have, the more value their company has. So if you want somebody to buy your business one day, they're not just buying the widgets that you're selling. They're not just buying the employees. They're not just buying your talent. They're actually buying your client data. They're buying all of the relationships that you have. They're buying the email list that you have. They're buying the reach that you have. So the better you manage all of that data from the outset, and the more you can demonstrate mastery over it, AKA metrics and KPIs, the more valuable your company becomes, the better decisions that you make. And when you can tell somebody that's looking to acquire your business, oh, this is how we determined that we only introduced products in the third quarter. Let's look at the last 3 years of data versus doing a second versus third quarter launch. And here's why. And you can actually have that real conversation back. Nobody can argue with facts. Nobody can argue with data, right? It's just right there in front of you. But when you start automating things into tools, what you end up with is a bunch of dashboards all over the place. And you have a lack of integration of data, and then you can't see your trends because you're looking at how my social posts are performing one day versus how my campaign is performing over here versus how my emails are doing over here. And you don't have a cohesive way to see what was actually happening inside of your business.
That's interesting because one of my, I mean, I'm pretty sure something that I'm going to be doing in 2024 is trying my hand at ads again. I'll probably have somebody help me with that. But I hear what you're saying, and I totally see why you're saying that. So then do you recommend having a completely separate account? What would that look like if somebody were wanting to do both organic and ads?
I think that what you need to do is look at everything that you're doing as an experiment. So this is something that my client, we're working on the framework for this right now. So they want to experiment with a new customer segment. So it's the same product, but in a new customer segment. And so when you frame it as an experiment, you say, here's when it's going to run. Here's the hypothesis that I'm making. So if I do these things, this is the result that I'm going to get. And then this is how I'm going to measure my performance. And then you can run 2 experiments. You can say, I'm going to do this one thing and I'm going to do organic and I'm going to do paid ads and we're going to see what happens. But then you have, just like you would in science class, you're going to have
hypothesis,
a very set step of procedures and then a way to measure what the results are. And then you can do it over time, right? The next time, then you say, I'm going to do both. I'm going to do it this way and that way. And you can see the results. But if you're very intentional with how you're framing it out, then you have some controls in place so that you can see what the measurements are and how it's going to perform. And then you know where to spend your time and your money the next time.
Okay. So track your metrics. Is there a tool you recommend that somebody could do this easily on?
So this is where it becomes a mixed bag kind of on what you're using inside of your business.
Okay.
So, we're using Asana with the client that I'm working right now. I know some people really like Monday. So I think you can use either one of those things. What I would say is that if you're really looking to automate it, the best thing that you can do is go to Fiverr, I'm not joking, and find a freelancer that knows how to use Zapier integrations really well. And then what they can do is they can take all of your existing things. So they can take your MailChimp or your Flowdesk account. They can take your Facebook pixel for the ads. They can take your CRM if you have one for your clients. They can take whatever data points you want and they can use Zapier as an integration point and they can actually pull it all together. And then inside of a tool like Asana or something else, they can create you a custom dashboard and you can see exactly what's happening.
Y'all, did I mention that Melissa does strategy calls?
And those are the sorts of things I help with, right? Is that I would help you find the Fiverr person to actually run that project. So all you had to say was like, this is what we're going to do. And this is when we need the reporting by. And then I get inside your house a little bit and you give me all the cleaning supplies, so to speak. And then we get it done.
Wow. That right there is sexy to me. Just like, hey, Melissa, this is what I need help with. And that's exciting to me. Thank God there are women like you out there who love to do this kind of work. Can I get an amen? Okay. So my last question for you before you tell us where we can all find you and book calls with you and all the things. For those of us listening right now who want to optimize, who want to scale, who want to continue to grow, what would be, and this is you may not even be able to answer this. This may be too complicated of a question, but is there something that we could do today, this week, that would, I don't know, ensure us that we're on the right track? Is there something that we get clear on? I know we need to know where we're going, so we already know that, but is there something else that comes to mind that you have a feeling that most of us probably aren't doing or aren't doing well that would help us to see results a little bit faster?
So one exercise that I love to assign people when I start working with them is to create a list. Literally, don't pull any resources up. Just right now, get out a piece of paper, get a pen. List every single expense inside your business and how much you're spending on it right now. Just write it down off the top of your head. Once that list is done, I want you to go pull up whatever bank account you're paying for business expenses through, whatever credit card you're using, like all of the things, like And knowing the entrepreneurs that I know, it is multiple bank accounts, multiple credit cards, like some other crazy slush fund somewhere else. I'm not joking you. I was watching something real time earlier today. And then I want you to write down every single expense that's hit those accounts that's business related for the last 90 days. And then I want you to compare that list to the list that you wrote down. I guarantee you that the actual expense list is in the range of 15 to 30% higher than what you think. Mm-hmm. And the reason that this is important is because you are setting your revenue goals. You are putting the energy into your sales approach. You are putting your energy into new client acquisition based off of that list on your paper, not based off of your bank account.
So good. That's huge. That's huge. I love that. And I get asked it always, and I understand why people ask me this question, but it frustrates me a little bit when people are like, what should I price this thing? Like, what should my prices be? And it's like, I can't answer that question. What's your overhead? What are your business goals, right? Like if you don't know what your true overhead is, then how are you going to price anything accurately? This is why people have to go get another job, because they're not connecting what's actually happening in the business with what they're charging and what they're making happen as a business result. So there's a mismatch. Yeah. So that's huge, because I know right now, I mean, this already gives me anxiety, because I'd come up with like 10 things and I know there's 30, 100%. And it's always little things, right? It's always like the app that you're spending $6 on every single month. That adds up. And if there's one thing, there's probably a few more. Okay. That's such a tangible, actionable tip. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I guarantee that you will find cost savings, because what I would also argue, and this is what I do live with people, is if that list had 10 things on it and your bank account has 30, then I need you to tell me why you need those other 20.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
If they are not top of mind to you, then they are not things that you're touching and using every day. So how important are they to you really?
Boom. Beautiful. Melissa Franks, this is an incredible conversation. So freaking helpful. I feel like this was a coaching call for me, which I'm so thankful for. So thank you so much. Where can everybody find you? Where can they listen to your podcast? We'll link the place for people to book a call with you, but tell us what we need to know.
Sure. So I'm on Instagram at Melissa_Franks. It is very easy. In fact, all of my handles are those things. So Instagram is the best place to find me. LinkedIn is another great place, and my network is your network. So for anybody that's in corporate or small business or whatever, and you find something in my network that would help you, just send me a message and I will make the connection happen. I'm happy to do so. And then, like Allie said, I've got strategy calls that I am offering right now. If you're interested in more of the on-call COO services, I do have room for 1 or 2 more clients, depending on size.
1, because I'm going to snag one. Sorry.
There you go. 1 more client. And so those require a conversation. So, hit me up on Instagram or schedule the strategy call, and then we can really figure out exactly what you need. The one thing that I pride myself on real strongly is that I'm going to be very candid with you about what you do and don't need. And if you're not ready for me, that's okay, because I've got some products that you can buy too. But let's have a strategy call and see how we can kick off 2024 super strong.
Beautiful. You're a boss. I admire you. You're an amazing mom. You're an amazing business owner and businesswoman and just human in general. So I'm honored to know you, and I'm so thankful for your time and you sharing your genius with all of us today.
Thank you. This was a lot of fun.
We'll have you back.
Anytime.